What's up? What's up? What's up? Where my money at? We are back for EP2. It's your host, Ji'Brayah Chanai, and I am here to give you a posture perspective on your purpose. Now, if you remember episode 1, I told you, blessings are like buses, miss one, next 15, one is coming. But I want to get into some tea, and this tea, she a little messy. I'm going to talk about the fact that in order for you to get promoted, you may have to demote all your friends. Yeah, Sarah, Jessica, Tanya too. I had to do it, and I'm going to give you the tea into if you need to do it to elevate higher. So let's get into the episode. Demoting all my friends. This is real tea. This happened in real life 4K. It was about a year ago, last summer. I woke up one day and I was like, everybody gots to go. It didn't really happen like that, I would say. It was more so I found salvation in God and I went into fasting and prayer and I knew I needed to isolate myself. But in that journey, I had to let go of all my relationships, from my boyfriend to my friends. I even had to cut off my parents and my family for a while. That season called me to go into isolation, not to hide, but to hear God's voice very clearly and sternly about what he wanted me to do in my calling. Now, before I get into this episode, I want to, sprinkle little blessings on it, give you a little scripture, because I want to make sure that I'm coming to you guys from a spiritual perspective, and I don't get too carnal. Cultural, but not carnal, okay? So I asked the Lord to do this for me. Set a guard, O Lord, over my mouth, and keep watch over the door of my lips. Psalms 141, verse 3. Because if you slick at the mouth like me, you got to ask God to apply a lot of grace over it. And this episode's a bit messy, so I had to, bring the shepherds in to make sure that, I don't get a little too ratchet, get a little too raw for you guys. But being promoted in God's kingdom is going to require you to let go of some relationships. And sometimes that relationship is you with yourself. But I want to get into how I had to demote all of my friends. I'm talking about delete my Instagram, change my phone number, not show up for birthday dinners, the entire 9. I even had to make an announcement on Instagram saying look, I'm not acting funky. I had to demote everybody. And then we could talk about re-auditions later on. Now this sounds like, girl, who are you, Beyonce? No, baby, I don't think I'm Beyonce. But once you get anointed and your call is very clear, you have to be very discerning about who's in your atmosphere. And that's something that not only I had to do, but God is probably ushering you to do the same thing. Now, here's my story. I am a girl's girl. If you was my best friend in elementary school, middle school, I still consider you to be my bestie today in my 20s. But I learned something about wisdom and discernment. Everybody cannot be labeled as your friend. Friendship is something that's earned. It's a title that can just be freely given. Or it's not an unlimited access pass either. Just because we had a good season together, whether we were coworkers, middle school best friends, high school besties, or connected in college, that don't mean you get an unlimited Six Flags pass into my life. It's something that has to be maintained. It's something that has to be equally yoked. And most importantly, it needs to feel godly and good. And if I'm being honest, I had a lot of friends that our relationship did not feel godly and good. And friend, if you're watching this, I'm spilling the tea, so don't get mad at me, okay? But I had a lot of friendships that just didn't feel godly. I'm going to tell you this real crazy story about a girl who the girls be jealous, envious, and you invite somebody in your house and they secretly not like you. It gets pretty deep. So I'm going to give you a little story about why I had to safeguard my heart and safeguard my dwelling from people who pretend like they like you, but they're really envious. So let me take you down memory lane. The year is 2021, and I've been invited into my best friend's wedding party to be one of her bridesmaids, along with 4 or 5 other women that I didn't know and my 2 best friends from middle school. And I was excited to be a part of the experience. I had never been a bridesmaid. I actually never been in a wedding or invited to a wedding as a guest before. So this was an exciting experience. So along that journey, it was about a year and a half before the wedding, I started to connect with the other bridesmaids that I knew mutually but didn't have a relationship with. And one of the girls started to kind of take a liking to me and wanted to hang out with me outside of the bridesmaid circle. So I welcomed her in. She told me she wanted to lose some weight before the wedding. She knew I was into fitness, so I invited her to come to the gym with me. Baby, that girl sabotaged every workout that I invited her to. From the time we got to Planet Fitness to the time we got out. She was talking, complaining, dragging. I could not finish a single set with her without her disrupting what I had going on. And I was like, well, maybe she's just a little novice at fitness and she may be uncomfortable, so that's why she's acting this way. So fast forward, eventually I had to ghost her. You ever had a gym partner and you like, you can't come with me no more. You can't come no more. So eventually I just started going to the gym without her. Not to be like condescending or mean, but I had a goal. Well, maybe this made her feel some type of way. She didn't communicate it, but she started acting a little funky as we got closer to the wedding. But I kind of brushed it off. I wasn't paying too much attention to her because my focus was on being snatched for the wedding. And I was. Well, we get to the wedding weekend. She books an Airbnb. Well, she was assigned to book an Airbnb, missed a deadline, and we ended up booking a secondary Airbnb that was just not up to par. It was a grandma's house, essentially. And she acted funky that whole weekend. Like, I didn't invite this girl in my house. We wasn't going to the gym. Like, we wasn't kicking it. And I was like, okay, she acting a little funky, but I'm not going to pay too much attention to her. Y'all, throughout the entire wedding, she was just off the chain. She was trying to squeeze herself in between us and the bride for photos. She would try to block us from getting into pictures. When we went to the reception, she was acting funky. We were dancing and having fun. The envy was just brewing out of her, and you can see it with a clear eye view. But again, I was just stunting her. Baby, a hater gonna hate. They don't stop no show over here. But as we began to continue to hang out after the wedding with the same group, she could not really disguise that envy that she had for me. So much so that I was playing with somebody's baby and she comes over to the child and says, "Don't you want to play with me? I'm light-skinned." Baby, if I'm lying, then I'm frying. This girl says it straight up. And I'm in so much shock that she said this. I'm like, am I hearing things properly? Did this girl really say this to a child? The child was like 3 years old. Say this in front of a child? I don't even know if she intentionally meant to say it or the envy and jealousy was just brewing up in her so strong that it just came out of her mouth. But it was at that moment that I realized that, Ji'Brayah, you got to start being very clear about who can be in your inner circle and in your atmosphere, because a lot of people, they pretend to like you, but they really just want to be around you so they can kind of change your energy, take something from you spiritually or physically in the world. And you got to be discerning of that. So after that encounter with her, I started to see people from a clearer view, from what their true intentions were. And while she was just a mutual friend and I didn't have a strong connection to her, I began to see my other friends in a different light as well as I got closer to God. I started to have some discernment around, who was really there for me, who was there watching as a monitoring spirit, and who was actually campaigning for me to win. And baby, let me tell you something. Just because you want other people to win does not mean that it works the same way. You could be campaigning and putting other people's name in the room and they don't even mention you. They probably pretend like you don't exist. And that can honestly be hurtful when you are somebody who serves from the heart, when you are what I call a ladder holder, which is somebody who supports other people's vision and dreams as they get to the top. It could be hurtful to know that people don't campaign for you the same way that you promote them. They're not being cheerleaders for your personal brand, or what I call a street team, the people that advocate for you in social media or on and offline. And I started to peep that these people really are not here for me. But instead of doing like a strawberry picking audit, baby, I cleared the whole thing. Sent the flood. Changed my number, deleted Instagram, went to fasting and prayer. And of course, at the time, I was finding salvation. But also, it was a great opportunity to do an audit of the people that were in my life. When I did return on Instagram, I did make a post about how I demoted all of my friends so that I can get clarity about who was really for me. And the girls who knew my heart, they understood the message and where I was going with it. And the ones that were not meant to be in my circle, oh baby, they began to reveal themselves. You know that prayer that you pray, that real good one, where you say, "Lord, if it ain't for me, let them leave." I prayed that one. And let me tell you, the list slimmed down so fast after that even I was shocked. And I like to ghost people. I like to get gone. But to see the shift happen after that prayer, I was like, okay, God, you be working overtime. Now, that's a part of my story. Have you ever had a moment where you're in a room with somebody and you start to realize that they just don't like you that much? They like your energy, they like your personality, they like what you do for them. But you as a person, your spirit, your soul, it just does not sit well with them. And you can feel the tension in the room. And for years, you might even ignore it. I know I did. And I would just tell people, oh, that's my best friend, but we just total opposites. We like to do different things. She more of an Edgewood. I'm more of a Buckhead. She's more of a sneaker. I'm more of a high heel girl. I'm pink. She more so on the blue side. I was kind of letting that opposition of between us be like a yin and yang kind of thing. But the truth was, we just were not equally yoked. Being with her just did not feel good. And while I labeled her as my best friend, when I transitioned into salvation and I moved away from the things that I used to do, like gossiping, baby, we used to gossip the house down, cussing, listening to secular music, being in relationships that were not aligned with either one of us. Once those things were removed from my life, our conversations kind of got stale. And there wasn't really much to talk about outside of business, which is my love. So I'm going to share my business tea. I'm going to give you free business advice if you're my friend, and so on. But conversations started to get a little weird. They started to get a little short. And as I got closer to God and very excited about my journey and speaking about him, this friend in particular she wasn't feeling it. Her demeanor would simply change on the phone as soon as I said Jesus or the Lord. She just wasn't feeling it. And I kind of felt myself trying to filter down or water down my salvation in order to appease her. And I had to come to a decision. Either I'm going to remain in this unequally yoked friendship that doesn't feel good worldly or spiritually, but it's what I'm comfortable with. This is a person I've confided in. They know a lot of my secrets. Or I could say, you know what, God, I trust you. And if I have to cease this friendship right here, I'm willing to listen to you and do that. So I did. And the funny part was that I didn't have to dump her. She ended up showing her true cards at a moment where I really expected her to show up, and she didn't. But it was so much beauty in that absence because I was able to see her heart, but also see my own heart and really humble myself. Not only in that situation where she didn't show up to something that I anticipated for her to be at, but it also made me realize that while I was demoting a lot of my friends, I wasn't really giving 100% into a lot of my relationships. Is this something that you can admit that maybe you have so many friends and you feel like you're just being stretched from every angle? You're going to a birthday dinner every weekend. You're having to go to show up for people all the time. You have to pick up the phone, extend the call, send a DM. And just to be balancing so many relationships, does it just feel exhausting? That's kind of at the point that I was at, where I realized that I can't be a good friend to anybody because I'm trying to be friends with everybody. And it was exhausting. And something else I had to take an audit of, which you can probably relate to, is friendship is going to be you like showing up in different capacities. You may not be a birthday dinner friend because, baby, I ain't no birthday dinner friend. I don't care how cute you see me on Instagram. I don't care how much you think I like to eat. Don't invite me nowhere with more than a party of 5 who got to split the check. It's just too much. But if you need my support when you moving, you need some prayer, you need a business strategy, you need me to tell you how to make your signature offer, oh, baby, call me. I'm going to talk to you for 2 hours. But I had to be honest about the capacity and the cup that I could pour into all these friendships. And even though I'm a woman who cups overflows, if I keep trying to pour into everybody's cup, eventually I'm not going to have enough to fill everybody up. So I had to demote all my friends. And from that point in time where I changed my number and I demoted everybody, I was able to organically foster relationships with them in my 20s. While I had previously kind of held on to the bond we had as kids, when I became an adult, I was able to say, you know what? This relationship with Lydia still feels good. This relationship with Veronica, this feels a little stale. I need to start distancing myself from her. Or I ain't heard from such and such in 2 years. Baby, we ain't best friends. We definitely ain't best friends, and we ain't cousins. It's time for me to depart from that and not even extend the olive branch of providing her with my new phone number. It's important for you to make space in your life so that God can bless you, not only with new opportunities, but with new people. And the crazy thing is, when I found salvation, I literally told God, I'm okay with doing this alone. Even if I have to turn my back on my family and my friends, I'm okay with doing this walk by myself. No Instagram, new phone number, middle of the summer, not connected with anybody. And God did what God do, the supernatural. And he connected me with not only one, but two groups of women in the middle of the summer. Yes, two Christian-based organization or girl groups invited me to come to their weekend getaway. And it completely changed my entire perspective on what it meant to be in godly relationships. And through those two events that happened during that summer, again, I was able to get a clearer view of the type of friend that I wanted to become as I transitioned into my later 20s. And I realized that sometimes demoting your friends is less about what other people do to you and more so how much you can pour into other people. And when I look back, I'm really grateful that I was brave enough to make that decision. Because oftentimes when you're moving into your 20s, it's scary to make new friends. It's scary to go at it alone. But if you want God to open up new doors, new opportunities, new offers, new clients, you got to make room. You got to filter the noise. And that will require me to let go of all the people from the past who I could not serve and they couldn't serve me. So if you're in a space where it's time for you to do an audit of your friendship group, get it done. Don't hesitate. Don't wait. Don't wait for her birthday to pass by, the holiday season, this, that, the baby shower. No, if it doesn't feel good and you prayed on it and it still doesn't sit well with your heart, it's time for you to move on so that God can make space for new opportunities and new friendships to come in your life. I can't tell you how beautiful the new friendships I have found, whether with old friends or with completely new women, in the last year. It has completely blown my mind. The type of clients that I have started to attract in my business based off of distancing myself from other women, I can't put it into words. And I can only account it to this one thing: being obedient, listening to what God told me to do so I can make space for where God wants me to go. No longer spending hours on the phone sharing my ideas with somebody else for them to take it, because baby, it happened. Harvesting those ideas and planting those seeds from my own garden so I could flourish in my brand and in my business has completely transitioned not only the way I see myself and how I'm postured, but also has definitely transformed my business in ways that I would not have imagined last year. I mean, my business has flourished so much, I had to hire a VA last month. Yes, baby. I got somebody to work under me. That's how good it has gotten when I got aligned with God. Making space to now, I went from serving other people to now I have somebody who's serving me inside my business so that I can expand. And this all started with this one thing: demoting all my friends and making space for God to intervene so I could hear him closely. Instead of running to people when I had an idea or running to them when I had a conflict or running to them to vent, baby, I was running to that Bible closet, into my prayer closet, into the Bible, into God to say, God, what direction do you want me to go into next? What is it that you want me to do? How should I humble myself? Maybe I should silence myself from gossiping and become humble. Me criticizing this woman on Instagram because of how she conducts business, maybe a reflection of how I conduct business. And I need to take a clear audit of that, correct it, so that I can have an offer that attracts the type of woman that I want. And now I went from offering $597 coaching to $10,000 packages that are paid in full because I was obedient. And I'm not saying this is a super secret formula that's going to work for everybody, but give it a go. If God is telling you to leave a room and leave a space, it's because he wants to open up a new door for you. But he can't snatch you out the house. You got to make that next step for you. So I want to encourage you to put your big girl panties on. It's going to get a little messy, but you got to depart from the people of your past if you want to be better. If you want to build a better brand, it's all about who you're associated with. And these things are critical in your growth, not only in your business, but also in your career. If you remember the previous episode, I talked about how the directors put my name in the hat for a new opportunity after I got laid off. That was based off of relationships. If when I got laid off, I would have consulted with my friends on what I should do next, I would have left the open to work sign on LinkedIn, even though God told me not to. I would have been applying for jobs that I was not aligned with, even though God didn't tell me to do that. If I would have went to other people for what I deem provision or guidance instead of listening to God, fasting and praying, I would not have had the success in the fruit that I have right now. So I want to encourage you to be obedient and listen to what he has to say to you in a direction that he wants you to go in. And remember that God's timing is different than everybody else's. He's going to make things happen. He's going to make things happen faster than you can blink. But you got to get on your knees. You got to pray. You got to fast. You got to put down the fork. You got to leave your friends. You can't show up to that brunch no more. You have to create boundaries in your life so that God can make space for what is next for you. So I'm encouraging you to build those boundaries with your friends, your associates, and your coworkers so that you can have an abundant life. So you can attract the people that you need to flourish in your business. And this strategy hasn't only worked for me. It's worked for several of my clients when I tell them about making space in your life. That's a part of your personal brand. The boundaries you start to set in your personal life kind of become the formula for how you set boundaries in your business. No longer are you responding to 12 a.m. texts, and you dang sure ain't responding to no 12 a.m. emails about an urgent matter. The boundaries you set become a lifestyle that's reflected in your business, in your career, and in your personal life. So I want to encourage you ladies to do what's right by yourself, by your brand, and by the fruit that God wants to bless you with. And if you're scared to hop off the porch, this is your sign to get a little messy and demote all your friends. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I cannot wait to see you guys next week. Be sure to connect with me on social media. You know who I am, Personal Brand Barbie. Follow our Instagram, Postured Pod. And you can find me on YouTube and all streaming networks when it comes to podcasting. I cannot wait to see you guys next week.